What's up? What's up? Gonna try a new live setup here. See if it works out pretty well. You were watching? I didn't want all the background stuff going on. I'm shooting this in my house in my my second living room or the kids' playroom, and there's toys everywhere. So I tried to block the background. So no secrets here. But I wanted to give it different look and feel than my dining room table. So figured I'd come on here and see if you guys had any questions, see how you guys are doing this week. I'm gonna actually put a recap out tonight, so be looking for that. See if you guys got questions for me. What's up, Scott? Yeah. See, I'm representing here with the Massonomics Don't Curl MET. Anyway, so it's kind of a rainy and cold day in Houston. I don't know about everybody else where you guys are at. I'm sure y'all have snow and I have nothing to complain about. But it's not actually cold. It's like 70 something degrees, but it's like nice and rainy and just dreary, and got some crappy news this morning. So just kind of drab for me today, but it's all good. This is a deload week, so it's nothing exciting on the training. Just kind of laying back and getting some rest and recovery, but we'll be back at it pretty heavy next week. So cool, appreciate it. That'll work. 20 reps in the workout. That's crazy. 30s, yeah. Where you at, Mike? What do you mean? Oh, you mean high rep with regularity? Not so much. Most of my training is geared towards strength. Now, obviously, I have phases of training where the reps are a little higher, like on my main sets. Maybe you go upwards of 10 to 12, but it's not real frequent. Typically, I do that like on my hypertrophy phase. The accessory is a whole different story. I can go, upwards of 20 reps or more sometimes on those. So. But for the most part, when it comes to strength, I try to stay within the 5 to 8 range for the most part. Torn Achilles, man, that sucks. Did that happen during lifting or? Grim Reaper, you said you've been hearing lately that bench press is extra unsafe and not good for muscle building. Well, as a whole, that's not a true statement. Now, depending on what's going on, with the pecs and things like that, basically, when it comes to bench press, there's not really a better exercise that is going to incorporate your pecs, your upper body, your back, your triceps. It's very similar, as I would say, for the upper body as maybe deadlift is for lower body. Well, you can argue that with squats as well. Obviously, you want to be careful with any movement, because if you're doing it wrong, of course you're going to have problems with your knees with squat. If you're doing it wrong, you're going to have problems with your back on deadlift, and it would be considered unsafe. If you're doing it wrong, your pecs can be in jeopardy. So absolutely, there's exercises that would probably target those areas a little more direct. But if you want to have a compound movement, I don't think you're going to get better than the bench. Playing football. Knock on wood, the only major injury, and I say major, it was major, but it didn't really knock me out too long, and I wasn't lifting at the time, really, was I tore MCL playing football. Combat sport, if you will, and with powerlifting, yet to get a major injury, so that's a good thing. It's just funny how you got a lot of people that are in the sport getting injured, but yet some of the top lifters are not getting injured. There's a reason for that. A good rep set range for increasing your overhead press. Well, anything, you know, I'm always a pro, or I'm pro progressive overload. So if you're able to just add a little bit of weight, even if it's just 1 pound, ever so often, doesn't have to be every week. You know, adding it where you know, you're progressing steadily over time, and that time could be a week, it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. But what you want to do is start with a rep range that you can handle, that's not going to just totally tax you out. Basically max out. Now max out doesn't always have to be 1 rep. You can max out with reps, and if you're pushing your body to the max every single workout, it's good for certain things, but I wouldn't say good for strength necessarily. And you can't progress forever like that. So you want to get on a plan that you can actually progress steadily over time. So if that means, let's say your overhead press is 135 right now for 5 reps, and that's maxing. Obviously next week you're probably not going to be able to go 135 for 6 or 140 for 5 or whatever. So what you want to do is start with like a sub-maximal load, and so let's say 100 for 5 the first week, and then 105 for 5 the second week. Obviously you want to do some other accessories and things like that, but just narrowing it down to the actual lift itself. I would start with something that is manageable, that you can hang with for 8 to 10 weeks, so that at the end of the 10 weeks you're hitting maybe a new rep max or a new 1 rep max, but you want to steadily increase to get to that point. And that goes with every lift, honestly. Obviously the heavier you're having to lift, the more you're having to lift, the more time you're going to need. You're not going to be able to increase your bench, you know, in 3 weeks by 50 pounds, not realistically. You know, so you want to look at it further out in advance, further out than 8 weeks or 12 weeks or even 24 weeks, things like that. Obviously, as a near 700-pound bencher, you know, same with squat and deadlift, you know, I look at those training cycles in terms of possibly years, depending on what's going on, to build up a new 1 rep max. So that's kind of how I look at things. But really, it's, you know, everybody's, to each their own. Every lifter's a little different, no matter if they're elite, if they're not elite, depending on the weight on the bar, depending on injuries, depending on how you train, how you recover. A lot of factors go into that. But just as a simple, you know, increasing your overhead press, I would start kind of in a maybe an 8 rep range, and then go as far as you can with that, and then do 5 or 6 reps or 5 reps, and then 4 reps, 3 reps, kind of pyramid up. I do not spend a lot of time on JM presses. Come here, dude. Come here. Say hello to the 3rd offspring. Say hello. Say what's up. Say hi. The camera's right there. Say hi. Say hi and I'll let you go. Say hi and I'll let you go. You're not going to say hi? Okay, I'm going to tell everybody you're shy. Can you say Massonomics?
Massonomics.
There you go. All right. You earned some brownie points. Watch the cord. Watch the cord. Go that way. All right. Well, so, you know, with Vang, as far as you got the slowest progress from overhead press, there's not a particular rhyme or reason for that. You know, typically everybody's got a lift that they favor. Now, I'm not saying what's your favorite, I'm saying what your body basically favors. For a long time, it was bench with me. Right now, bench is obviously getting to a point to where it's at the all-time levels, so it's not easy to just add weight, you know, overnight. But my squat and deadlift have been creeping up. So I would say my favorite lift right now, like as far as the main lifts, probably deadlift. It's starting to really catch on me, but that's good, because as it becomes as it's exciting to me to lift, I look forward to doing it. Not that I don't look forward to doing the other ones. I'm just kind of pick and choosing at this point, but just keep working at it, because the thing is, you're going to have lifts that are going to increase time. Some of them more than others, and some will be stable while the others are increasing. I think ultimately, as long as you are progressing in general over time, then you're still doing well. I look at it like in terms of, I've got actually a graph on my phone that I show people, and it's I need to update it because it's a couple years old now, but basically it's the first time I ever benched, and then now where I'm at, And then if you look, if you zoom in, you're going to see some times where it looks like it's going nowhere. And then on squat and deadlift, it looks like it's actually going down, and then it goes up. But if you zoom out and look at the big picture for a 5-year time frame, it's going up like this, which is what you want. And so the patience is where that comes into play. As long as you're making the right moves, and that's the other thing is, you need to make sure you're making the right moves, you're training smart, you're recovering, things like that. But there's always going to be one lift that's just stale a little bit at the time, while the others look like they're going up. Let's see what we got here. Oh, I missed a couple questions. Went to Elite FTS for a workout, found they sniff ammonia from silicone. Yes, I have seen that. Basically, it's from a fleshlight. That I guess if that's how they want to do it, man, that's one way to do it. I don't think it really matters how you get it into your system either way. But yeah, I've seen them do that. Is it true mass moves mass? So I'm going to go ahead and say no. What moves mass is strength. So I've seen some massive guys that can't bench 315. Can't squat 315, can't deadlift 135, whatever. And I've also seen some really small guys that you would see on the street and you would not be intimidated by at all. It looks like they might be able to bench 225 and they're benching 500. So I will go as far as saying that if you are putting on strength mass, then absolutely you can expect that new strength mass to move, as long as it's trained properly, whatever mass you're needing to move. When's the 800-pound bench coming? Honestly, I would say the 800-pound bench will be a reality within the next 4 years. I think it'll take 4 years to get there. It could be sooner, but I think we're gonna hit kind of a human element of mental block about 770 or so, 771, 775, and it's going to take some time to blast past that barrier. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, when we get to 800, what's next? We're going to go to 810, we're going to 850. I mean, it's exciting to watch. So we will see. Let's see. Merry Christmas. Thank you, Big Bad. Does your program use percentages, linear periodization? It does not. It uses percentages to get started, because obviously I can't write a program for the masses, or I can't write a program for you without knowing something about what you are doing now. And the easiest way that I can do it is, okay, thank you, bud.
It's a package.
Thank you, sir. Is it a big package?
Yep.
Oh, it must be animal. All right. So, sorry guys, talking to my 4-year-old. Let's see. So basically it starts out with percentages just so I can set the numbers, and then going forward, depending on the program, because I've got a couple of different options, like the 2.0 doesn't use percentages as much. It kind of uses a little different scheme, and uses like an RPE scheme, so we can really make sure that you're getting the work. The 1.0 programs are still great. They're just using a slightly different scenario, a little bit different accessory work. But they're all basically linear periodization, and they basically will move you along at a steady pace. A lot of the guys that I have gotten a lot of feedback, I mean, I've sold over 1,100 programs, and most of the feedback is for the 1.0 programs. I'm starting to still get some feedback from the 2.0 programs, but it hasn't really ramped up too much for those guys yet, because they're still fairly new at it. But the 1.0 program guys, basically would message me, or I'd see comments or posts that they were like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is going to be the weight that I have to do today. And then they do it, and then they smash right through it. And then the next week they're like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to get this for X number of reps. And then they do it. And so some of it's just a mental block. So I think that approach to the program is working very, very well for everybody, because they're doing weights that they didn't realize they would be able to do, because they've been limiting themselves with shorter, or not shorter, but lower reps and higher weight. trying to max out all the time, or to some degree doing sets of 3s and sets of 1, 2s, just going into the gym and not really getting any volume in. And this program, or these programs, all from the bench program all the way to the full power, they will give you some volume and some hypertrophy, especially the longer ones, the 24 weeks, and they will build you up through a strength phase and a peak phase. But if you have any more questions on that, definitely let me know. Let's see. Just keep overhead pressing and change it up. See the difference. Yeah, I mean, for Vang, as far as your overhead pressing is concerned, obviously, hitting variants of overhead press, dumbbell, barbell. You can even do different specialty bars. You can do shoulder accessory work, but you're going to definitely build up your shoulders, and that obviously will contribute to your overhead press. Do I ever train bench with a wider grip for variation? Yes, I do. I haven't been doing it as wide as I did the last training cycle. I went through a phase, I would say about 10 weeks, where I was super wide, for me anyways, and that was about 2.5 inches past my normal grip, which I guess it was about 25 inches that I was going with, and it put a lot of extra strain on the pecs. And I say strain, a lot of extra work in the pecs, and my back really started building up, and I got a lot wider back from going wide. But as we got heavier, towards the 650, 660 mark, my natural instinct was to move in closer, because that's where I could really stay tight. So I went ahead and finished out that training cycle with a successful 665 bench in the gym, and was going for a meet about 3 weeks later, where I wanted to go 700, and we ended up just pulling out of it because the next week the 675 didn't move the way I wanted it to. 685 the following week didn't move, and I figured, you know what, I'm gonna go into this meet and not get what I want. And I really wanted some good momentum going into Boss of Bosses for full power. So we went ahead and put bench sort of on the back burner, if you will. Obviously bench didn't take a hit, it just stayed where it was at. And squat and deadlift got ramped up for the 2180, 83 total that I just did. But now that I'm back on a bench only cycle and really concentrating on bench, my grip is about 23 inches or so, about 2 inches outside the smooth. So the smooth here, and then about 2 inches outside of that. So I would say about 2 inches or so. And that's a really smart position, I think, for me, because I'm able to get my back engaged really, really well, and I'm still able to drive those triceps all the way through to the end, which I prefer to be closer to do that. But stability is a problem. I'm also wanting to be a little bit wider, because if you guys have noticed, I'm tucking my feet under, and I'm getting a little bit different leg drive, a little bit different core stability. So I don't want to be so narrow that I end up tipping the bar. So I'm trying to stay close, trying to stay wider for that as well. Do I recommend benching around the same time, each time? However, yesterday I benched a little earlier in the afternoon. I actually do. I prefer to bench midday because I can mostly. I have been able to successfully bench at all hours of the day, even at night sometimes. But my preference is about 1 to 2 p.m. Only because I own my own company and I can make my schedule for the most part. I've actually been doing an 8-day stagger, so 8-day split, where Monday I'll hit bench, and then the next Tuesday I'll hit bench, and then the next Wednesday I'll hit bench. So I've got 8 days of rest. That's really seeming to help out. I think we'll see what it does, but I really think it'll help going forward as we get heavier to get that 1 extra day of rest. And I'm not opposed to actually putting an extra couple days of rest in there and getting a 9-day split or 10-day split based on how I feel. This training cycle will be 100% fluid with how I feel. Not going to stick to a strict schedule. I'm going to go based on feel. And I really think it's looking promising. That's the one thing I haven't ever done. I've changed a lot of little things here and there. The one thing that I have a problem with, I think, is when I start getting super heavy, I feel banged up the next bench day, and we go for it anyways. And I'm pretty sure, my instinct is telling me that I've got everything else covered, all the bases covered, and that's the only one that I kind of have left uncovered, sticking to a schedule. But that's kind of going off on a tangent, but back to what your original question was. Yes, I do prefer to bench at the same time every time, same setup if I can, not changing too much. And occasionally it's nice to change it up just for whatever reason or another. You coming in? All right, bud. All right, so I got my sidekick here. Tell him your name.
Connor.
Connor. And you got your friend who? Who's this?
Tiger.
Tiger. All right, I'm answering questions. You gonna help me? Okay. All right. Who's the strongest guy in the world?
You.
Oh, are you sure about that? I don't know, man. There's a lot of strong guys in the world. All right, so let's see. What's my age, height, and weight? How long have I been training? All right, so I'm guessing you're new to the channel, so welcome. Make sure you subscribe. I am 39 years old. I'll be 40 next July, so I'm an old guy, I guess. I don't know how that figures out, but I feel young. My height, I'm 6'1". I weigh right around 297, I think, or so this morning. I didn't weigh this morning. Yesterday morning, I was like 290, somewhere in the high 290s. Watch my phone. And let's see. What was the last question? Oh, how long have I been training? For powerlifting, about 5 years, just over 5 years. Training in general, maybe 10 years for weights. And I was a football player before that. Tried out for the NFL, didn't quite make it. Don't look me up. You won't find me anywhere. I didn't play on any teams or anything. And before that, I was a swimmer for about 15 years, 16 years, since I was 14 or so. So that's kind of my training history. Let's see. Having more pure muscle gives you more mass, opportunity to gain strength. Yes, definitely. If you're putting on muscle mass, you're going to be stronger for sure. Can someone under 170 pounds body weight realistically ever bench press 600 pounds? I love questions like this because honestly, who am I to say no? Is it going to be something that's a regular thing? I don't think so. Do you think anybody 170 pounds is going to bench press 600? No? Can I bench press 600? Can I bench press 700? Nah, well, okay, he's speaking the truth here. I got it. All right. But to answer your question, I would say yes. I'm going to go ahead and be optimistic and say yes, I think it is possible. Is it going to take a special breed of person? Yes. That's you. Let's see. I'm 50 years old, 270 pounds, considering to compete in your first contest. Current bench is at 475. Is that a good weight for my age bracket? Heck yes, it is. I was 34 when I started, December 6th, 2015. 14. God dang it. 2014. Yes. I was a 600-pound gym bench, and I went to a competition and got 474. Won bench and got the state title for Texas, which is not a bad number to have at all. Connor, watch my phone. Watch my phone. So yes, I would definitely say you are ready to get into powerlifting competitions. The one thing that I would say for anybody, and you don't have to be a specific weight for age bracket or anything like that, and I'm sure you're not asking for this reason, but anybody that's looking to start into powerlifting, you want to know the federation you're going to compete in. So you want to do some research on the different powerlifting federations. Find one in your area. Find one that has a meet going on in your area. I wouldn't travel too far. Don't worry about cutting weight. Don't do anything like that. Just have fun with it and learn the commands. That's all you need. You just make sure you're lifting with decent form. You don't have to be the strongest person in your state or in the city or whatever. A lot of people will. You're on the phone again. You're going to hang up on everybody. All right. So basically, you want to have fun with it, and you want to make sure you know the commands. You want to have good form, and just enter the meet, learn. Because everybody that's around you at the powerlifting meets, as far as I'm concerned and ever been around, they're very helpful, and they're willing to help you out. They're willing to give you the shirt off their back. There's always going to be a bad apple here and there, but I think you'll be fine. As far as your age bracket, I don't know a lot of 50-year-olds going around benching 400+ pounds, so I think you're good to go. Lower back pain when you're deadlifting. Personal trainer told me from my form is fine, everything deadlifts, but every deadlift session, my back gets aggravated. There's some things you keep. Okay, I'm gonna go on a limb here and just go with an instinct here. As long as your form is okay and you don't have any injuries or any kind of issues going on, It could just be back pump. I know I get back pump. Actually, I get it every single workout, and it's basically just where your back is tight. Your core of your back, right along your spine, your erectors, they just tighten up because they're being worked, and it's your body's natural reaction when you're putting it under stress, especially when you're deadlifting or squatting or doing like that. I get it when I'm benching, and it just locks up. One thing that helps, and sometimes it doesn't help with certain lifters, is taurine, Tauri. You can get it at any GNC, and I normally take 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams. Normally, I think it comes in 500 milligram tablets most of the time. That helps a little bit for me. It doesn't. It's not an end all, but it helps if I take it maybe at lunch and then 2 hours later when I work out or whatever. Another thing you can do is roll out on a PVC pipe. I use a big, thick 4-inch PVC pipe. You can just buy it at Home Depot for $4 or whatever, or any home improvement store. I put some electrical tape around it, or just some sports tape around it, just to keep from scratching and doing weird stuff, but just kind of give me some traction on it. I use that between sets. I don't kill myself on it or roll out too much, but I roll out my legs, I roll out my back, and it helps to kind of smooth out those erectors a little bit. I do it afterwards as well. Even just kind of sitting here, my erectors are a little bit pumped up. I may roll out on a PVC pipe after the video, just at home. Something to look at. Another thing is massage. I have a car buffer. You can get home, Walmart or whatever for $10, $15, and it's just a wax buffer. And I have my wife or my kids just do that on my back, after a deadlift session, and it helps quite a bit. Heat always helps to relax it. Now I'm assuming it's back pump if that's the case. If it's back pain or something that's being caused from a pinched nerve or a pulled muscle, strained muscle, this stuff probably won't help or probably aggravate it. But try that. If it does aggravate it, it's probably something more serious. I wouldn't say an injury necessarily serious, but something where you don't want to massage it, possibly even want to ice it. I try to be careful with ice on the lower back, just because it normally makes things worse for me. Anywhere else it helps, inflammation and things like that. But definitely check that out. Assuming your form is okay. You feel like sets over 5 on the main lifts are necessary, or you say if you bench 5 and lower the dumbbells would help the strength. Okay, so basically, depending on what you're doing, I kind of answered this question a little bit earlier. For me, in my specific training, or power lifters in general in their specific training, 90% of the time they're going to be doing reps of 5 or less, because they're mostly working on strength. They're not working on breaking down the muscle and hypertrophy and size and things like that. We're just worried about moving that barbell from point A to point B as efficiently and effectively as possible and put the most weight on the bar. Most of the time when you're working on a 1 rep max is the ultimate goal, you want to build up to that as quickly as you can and be in that zone longer. But there's periods of time in training, like I just kind of came out of, where I was doing sets of 8 and 10, and that's what I consider my own type of hypertrophy training. Now, I've been in hypertrophy training when I wasn't a power lifter and I was more of just a gym lifter, and I wanted to build size, and ultimately I was just playing football, so I wanted to see how many times I could do 225. So doing 50, 60 reps at 220 with 225 is definitely hypertrophy. And I was training for that reason. I wasn't training for a 1 rep max. I was training to see how many reps of 225 I could get, or how many reps of whatever. But in the world of powerlifting, the less reps that you're not gonna be needing to do a bunch of sets of 10, because that is just going to really just wear you down. Now, you might look good, you might have some great muscle, but eventually you're going to want to put that muscle to use and do a 1 rep. So you're going to start pyramiding up to the 5s and 3s and singles. Mike, should work out a deal with one of the equipment manufacturers to get deals for your followers, by the way. I know I would appreciate it. Well, I'll tell you what, if you guys have ever seen what I train with, I definitely support Mark Bell and Slingshot. The gangster sleeves, the wrist straps, the knee sleeves, the elbow sleeves, my belt, Let's see, what else do I use of theirs? The wrist straps for deadlifting. And they got really good deals. In fact, I've got a promo code, so you can check out my Instagram and link over there, or I can just tell you here. If you just go to Mark Bell, markbellslingshot.com and use Swimhack10 as a promo code, you're going to save 10% right off the bat. I know they've got a bunch of Christmas specials going on, and some stuff like that. But I think their products are second to none. There's a lot of great companies out there. I'm aligned with Mark Bell. So there you go. You got your wish granted. And SB, and to follow up with you on that hypertrophy and strength, I think they are necessary. I actually, when I train my training clients, depending on what time of the season they're in, if they're gearing up for a meet, obviously you don't want to do hypertrophy. It's more of a peaking phase. But anybody that I start with, I typically, not only just my programs, but even my coaching clients, is I will put them in through sort of a hypertrophy phase. And it's conditioning, because it conditions them, but it also sets a tone, sets a good foundation to build on. So I would say everybody at some point in their training cycle, once a year probably, should go through some form of hypertrophy or higher rep phase before they start going into the strength and the higher weight peaking phases. Each one of those phases has their own specific benefits, and I think they do piggyback and help the next one along the phase. You can do time, but I think you do better if you can take some off where you're basically not even lifting at all, and then you go through a higher rep phase, then you go through a little bit lower rep phase with some higher weight, and then you eventually move on into super heavy weights in your peaking phases. Best assistance exercise for bench plateau busting strategies. Well, two-part question here. So when it comes to my favorite accessories for bench, I would definitely say, because I am a tricep dominant bencher, I love weighted tricep exercises of any type. Tricep rope, straight bar, V-bar, on monastery extensions, JM presses, Spoto presses, floor presses, pin presses. Those are all great tricep exercises. I think anybody that's benching or wanting to up their bench is going to need to rely on their tricep to some degree. I think that most people, I would say, just to throw a number out there, 80% of the people out there are going to have issues locking out the weight and not have the issues off the chest. The other 20% are going to be the ones like myself, where if the weight's super, super heavy, I'm not worried about locking it out because my triceps are so strong and so dominant in how I bench. So I need to, when I start getting heavy, I need to worry about the bottom end strength. So I do dead presses and a lot of back exercises, a lot of pec work and things like that. But it's not the end all. Obviously, I still need to work triceps and something. It's overall. But you always want to target your weakness, and this is going to the second part of your question: how to bust through any kind of plateau. I don't care if it's bench or not. You want to focus on your weaknesses. You don't sit there and worry about how to get your 1 rep max higher. If you're hitting a wall, it's not the time to be worrying about how heavy you can go. That's when you back off the weight and you start building up. I hit a wall of sorts through the last training cycle, and instead of sitting there and going heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier, because eventually you're just going to fail, that's not going to get you stronger. What gets you stronger is backing off the weight, bringing it down and into a rep phase, even if it's 5 reps. You don't have to go way back into hypertrophy phase. But definitely want to work on your weaknesses. And so when I'm in my specific training, back, even though my back is so strong, it's the weakness that's holding me back from exploding off my chest. So we're building up the back, and if you're watching the training recaps, you can see our accessory work, or my accessory work for this training cycle, is second to none. I don't want to go as far as saying nobody's ever done this kind of stuff, because I've seen people doing some crazy stuff, but as far as all in one cycle or one training week, I have not seen anybody to this point to do the type of stuff that I'm doing right now. And that's not to toot my horn or to be like I'm better than somebody else. I am going for something that nobody in my weight class has ever done, and so I want to smash this to smithereens. I need to do something in my training that nobody's ever done. So my back work has been paramount as far as the rows, and I hit heavy rows, and I hit lighter rows, I hit higher rep rows, and I hit lower rep rows. And so I'm targeting my back as a weakness, my pecs, my triceps are still getting hammered, and I'm definitely working on legs and core and things like that. But all this will come together to bust through the plateau. All right. So the next question here from SD is, do I like keeping accessory work the same, or do I like to rotate them weekly? So I work with a coach, as I would, I would recommend that to anybody who's serious with their lifting. I am a very self-motivated, self-driven. I will get in and get the work done by myself, nobody around. But I also know that I am a little bit lazy. And I, even though I'm one of the hardest workers I know, I'm also very lazy by nature. I like to just chill. And sometimes I can get, my ego will take the best of me, and I'll want to go and do certain things in the gym where I need to just come back a little bit. And there's times when I feel like where I need to press on the gas a little more. That's where having a coach, having somebody to keep you accountable comes into play. They use their experience, your experience together. It's a very good mesh of teamwork, and it helps out quite a bit, because there's times when I want to step on the gas when I shouldn't, and there's times when I don't want to step on the gas when I should, and having a coach, having somebody to bounce the ideas off of, helps me out. But when it comes to the training, the accessory work, things like that, a lot of it's based on feel. I don't change up accessories too much, because I'm not able to determine where I'm at. I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm doing tricep rope push downs, and I'm doing this last week I did 225 pounds for 12 sets of 6. And let's say next week I wanted to change up my exercise and do skull crushers. What weight do I start with? Do I just go off of feel? I mean, how do I determine, okay, 225 with a rope, what does that equate to on a skull crush bar, on an easy bar, and a lot of different factors that go into that. So if I was to do something like that, what I would probably do is incorporate a new accessory and then phase out the old, and the new one kind of takes over. But honestly, I just keep things simple. I have my accessories, and I typically keep them in there until they stop working, until I stop seeing a progression. Or, for example, like the pendulay rows that the bent over rows that you guys have seen on my recaps. I topped out at 500 for 5 a few weeks back. I could probably go up and up and up and keep going up, but those are so freaking heavy that my chest is involved with the body English that is having to be done to get those weights moving around. And so instead of doing more of that one and getting heavier, we moved on to T-bar prison rows, where I'm still at 430 pounds, but I have a little bit more stable control over the weight. And pretty soon we're going to max out where I can't go any heavier on that. So that's where we change up the stimulus to where when the muscle is getting so strong that my overhead press is 430, 440 pounds, it's not going to directly translate over to a bigger bench. So that's the case that keeping things safe is another thing. I can do skull crushers with a lot of damn weight, but my elbows start really kicking in because of the torque on the elbows, but not so much on tricep rope because I can kind of tighten them in. So there's just different exercises for different things, but I would say you don't necessarily want to rotate different accessories every single week, because you're not going to allow your body to progressively master that lift. I would keep your accessories in for, and just throwing a number out there, 5 to 8 weeks minimum before you change them out. There's nothing wrong with keeping the same accessories in as long as they're working. And I do that with a lot of my training clients. Some of my clients need to be changed out quite frequently because of some reason or another, but most of them can stay the same for a long period of time, and maybe we just change up the day that it's done, or the order that it's done, or the number of reps versus sets, and things like that. So there's no real reason, there's no absolute reason why you should keep them in all the time or not keep them in all the time. It's really on a per user basis, if you will. All right. Do I think a 365 bench 200 pounds at 8? Yes, absolutely. And I benched 200 when I was 18. So 365 at 18 years old at 200 pounds is very good. Let's see, what am I missing here? Best time to eat before an intense workout. I have a crazy squat workout at 5 and it's 1:43 right now. I typically eat about an hour before I get to the gym. That gives me an hour for my food to start digesting, another 15-20 minutes for my pre-workout to kick in, and I got a 30-minute or so warm-up time. So that's about an hour and a half after. Deadlifts used to bother me when I ate about an hour or so before. So I normally, when I'm doing deadlifts specific, I like to have a 2-hour period. But I have to eat a little bit more carbs on those particular days because it's going to be longer before I'm actually working out. I always have an intra-workout, so I have carbs in me and continually going into me while I'm at workout. Normally take a power bar of some sort, some sort of protein bar to snack on if I get hungry, and you'll see me snacking on Skittles and things like that. But I would say, about an hour is probably a good estimate. Do I have any plans on what I will do post 700-pound bench? Well, here's my plan for this year to 2020. Hopefully there's no crazy things that get in the way. There normally is. But if everything goes perfect, I would love to do my 700-pound bench. And then, first part of the year, I'd like to go ahead and do a raw meet and put up a pretty decent total by, midway summer, after the summer. And then I've got Big Dogs 5. I'm going to go to Australia, and that'll be in wraps. So we'll see if we can. That'll probably be technically my first wrapped meet. So we'll have some fun with that. But that's kind of the plan so far. So we'll see what happens. Today was aiming for 10 reps on my week 1 bench press. Failed and did only 7 because I'm out of breath. No conditioning for reps. 2 more sets of 7 to condition a little bit. It happens. I wouldn't necessarily beat yourself up with that. The first couple weeks of this training cycle, I was supposed to do sets of 10, and I got sets of 5. It took me a couple weeks to get acclimated. I didn't lose, footing or anything like that. I just kind of backed the weight back down, adjusted some things, and then finally we were able to hit those sets of 10. Then all of a sudden it just happened, and I felt great. And then by the time I got used to it, it's time to start lowering the reps a little bit, and I upped the weight. So, it was only about a 3-week time frame where I was able to do sets of 10. But, it is conditioning, and if you're not used to it, it's just like, if you're not used to running, you go run a lap, you're going to be out of breath. But give yourself a couple weeks, you're going to be fine. So, all right. What's up in Egypt? James, will I do another day of eating? Yes, I promise I'll do one of those pretty soon. Thank you, James, for saying it's very good. It was paused. Let's see, that was 365. Gotcha. Pittsburgh, compete soon. Awesome, man. Good luck. That 365 is really good. People ask me all the time because they assume, the world of powerlifting, and there's all these 600-pound benches getting thrown around on Instagram, and 500 pounds, and people don't realize that a 300, 400-pound bench is not common. It's in powerlifting, sure, because it's powerlifting, but in the average world, I could go to the local mall and I probably could find 2 people that could legitimately press 300 or more that are not powerlifters. So it's not normal. It's not common for that to be the case. You'll have people that want to make themselves look better and, oh, well, whatever. It's if you're a high school kid and you're doing anything over 200, I think you're strong. That doesn't say that if you're not doing 200, you're not strong. I'm just saying if you are doing that, you're absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind. I was a swimmer and I was 16 when I did 200 the first time, and I didn't really have any inkling to go higher than that. Didn't really know how much anybody else was doing in the school or around me or in powerlifting. I didn't even know what weights were, honestly. I just knew that 200 was good for me, and that was it. And then when I was 25, I had been swimming for a few years, about 11 years at that time. And one day the coach, who used to be a powerlifter in AAU, just said, hey, let's all see what everybody's bench press is, just to have fun one day. And I got a 300-pound bench press at 25 years old, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Cool, I got a 300-pound bench press. I don't know what that means. And he lays down on the bench, does 405 for 2. Now, he was a 65-year-old guy at the time. Coach Johnny Means, Harris County Aquatics program is the swim team that we're on. He still coaches down there. He still runs a team and everything like that. Great team. But he did 450 when he was powerlifting back in, I think, the 70s or 80s. And so when he told me that, I was like, okay, well, that 300 looks like chump change. And it wasn't for another couple years that I started kind of playing with the football thing a little bit, training, getting bigger. And next thing I know, naturally my bench went up because being a swimmer, my joints, tendons, ligaments were already set and strong as hell. That's why I don't have a lot of problems with those areas, because I took 16 years of foundation work without even knowing it and built all those underlying structures up. So when I poured slabs of muscle on there by working every single time I'd go on the bench, I'd want to max out just like everybody else does. It didn't hurt me because I already had everything underneath strong. So typically you're not going to tear a pec unless something's going wrong or your form is off or something's really bad. Most of the time that I've heard from anybody that's having a serious injury is it didn't just sneak up on them. It was there for the last 3 or 4 weeks or months, and they felt something and they felt something and they just kept doing it, pushing it, and they felt a pop, and they're like, oh man, I got to work out, I got to finish the set. Then they start pec, and then they're just like, crap, now I'm out for 6 months or whatever. Well, all that could have been prevented. So that's kind of where I come from when I'm talking about preventative maintenance and recovery and all that kind of thing. Is if I feel something strange, I act like that's literally the end all that could end the career. So I treat it as such. It's done me very well to stay injury free. So, all right. Let's see, where did I get it? I missed a couple questions. Sorry, I was on a rant. So I'm assuming you mean like drug free. So I cannot claim natural past the age of 36. I had low testosterone level was 360 or somewhere, mid 300s. Basically, just was. I'm normally very high energy, recover well, high spirits, no depression types, attitude. And then for about a year or so there, I was just kind of down in the dumps, and I was just like, what's going on? Like, life is good, but training seems to be going well, but just things don't seem to be the same anymore. And I was just chatting with a friend of mine. I said, hey, this is what's going on. He goes, dude, you probably got low test. You're like 36 years old, man. You're probably just down in the dumps. You're lifting. You're not, you're maybe not doing something right or eating right or whatever the case may be. He goes, just go to the doctor and check it out. Have on your annual physical, just have them test your test levels and see if you're, do a male panel and see if there's something wrong. Make sure it's not like cancer or anything crazy. And did that, and they were like, dude, you got low T. And the doctor was just very matter of fact about it. And they was just like, okay, you got low T. What do you do about this? And I'm like, is this like a disease? I mean, I'm so naive. I'm like, what do you mean? What am I supposed to do? I mean, like, I don't want to be on drugs. I don't want to like do that. And they went, no. It's literally, it's part of a medical procedure. It's a prescription. And so I'd already been powerlifting for, well, let's see, 2000, so about 2 years at the time. I think that's right. My mind is totally blank right now. So 2014, so about 2 years at the time. I had done a 589 competition bench as my best powerlifting meet. Squats and deadlifts, I wouldn't really factor those in because I really didn't care about those that much at the time. I think they were probably sitting around 600 and 600 at both of those. I had done a 605 gym bench in 2012, 4 years prior. That kind of what I've done. After that, obviously, my best lifts to date is a 760 squat, a 672 bench. That was a bench only meet. The best bench in a full meet at this point is 639 and 783 pound deadlift. So 2182 total, 2182 and some change. So it's like right at 2183. And that was done this August. So as far as natural is concerned, yes, it is possible to bench press 600 pounds plus in a natural state. Is it going to be something everybody can do? Absolutely not. Never claim that. There's certain people that are put on this earth with certain gifts that are just able to do things better than others in certain things. That doesn't mean that not everybody has some talent to do something, but not everybody's going to be a 600-pound bencher. It's just not going to happen. Could they be 500 pounds, 400 pounds? Absolutely. You know, there's different stages. But as far as like, and I'll just go ahead and nail this on the head, you know, just because it's probably not your question that you're asking about natural, but a lot of guys will ask, you know, what's the benefit to taking, performance enhancing drugs? Well, obviously there is some sort of benefit to it, but unless you have everything else squared away, it's not going to matter jack crap. Just imagine like having a brand new Lamborghini without gas. I mean, it's the same concept. Or horrible tires, you know, best engine in the world, but a horrible track. You know, there's all these factors, they have to line up perfectly. So just putting high, octane gas in your car is not going to make a Ford Pinto or smart car or a little F-150 truck do what a Lamborghini can do. It's not going to do it. Now, that's not to say that if you have everything lined up perfectly as a lifter, and you have one lifter who is exactly like a twin of the other lifter, and one is on performance enhancing drugs and one is not, absolutely, guy on performance enhancing drugs is going to have something considerable margin. It may be 20%, maybe 30%, maybe 10% of an advantage. Sure. But I think the biggest thing and I can only speak for what I do, the biggest thing for testosterone prescription is recovery. It's not necessarily the strength, but strength comes from being able to recover. So you're not just going to be able to say, oh, I want to get a prescription. First of all, you have to have low testosterone to legally get a subscription, a prescription. But if you are low and you get on a prescription, that doesn't mean you're all of a sudden you can start benching 315 tomorrow because you benched 275 yesterday. That's not how it works. You will notice that your mood is better, that your physical recovery is better, sexual performance. I mean, let's just go down into the dirty of it. I mean, that's what testosterone is. It's a male sex hormone. And so everything that your body is normally wanting to do, if you don't have that being produced, you're not going to be able to do and feel the same way. If you now have kind of a supplementation of it, you're going to feel better. Now, I can't speak as far as if you're, going into the realm of abuse of these substances and taking like way more testosterone than your body is supposed to have, or that a doctor can prescribe. You're getting into some territory that obviously is, there's a lot of lifters that do it. I know a lot of lifters that do it. I don't know. I don't know a lot that take so many grams of testosterone and they get a huge benefit from them. I honestly see a lot of guys getting injuries and they're not eating very well and they're not sleeping very well and there's a CPAP machine because they're just overweight. So just because you go and take something doesn't mean you're going to have the oasis of lifting. In fact, you probably will go the opposite way, because if you're taking it for that reason, you're going to abuse it and you're going to not use it for the right reasons. You're probably not going to get the results that you want. End of rant. Sorry, that's probably not what you meant by the question, but I figured I'd use the platform to just kind of explain my side. Started powerlifting in 2014. My body weight was about 260-ish at the time. What do you do for a client whose job might get in the way of training, might miss a day or two out of the week, not every week, but can happen anytime? Tony, what's up, man? I recognize the username. So basically, what I would do for a client, what I do for clients right now, is work with them, because that's the whole point of a coach, is to literally figure out what you have available as far as equipment, as far as time, as far as effort. And I won't mention any names, but I do have a client in Louisiana right now who is a longtime friend as well, and is just the Christmas time is very, very tough with the scheduling, and in his particular industry, they're having to do a bunch of openings of new plants and things like that, and so he's working 80 hours a week, and he can't get a lot of sleep. And as a coach, you would think, okay, well, I would tell him, suck it up, do what you got to do, and do the lifts. That's not what I tell him. I tell him, how many hours of sleep are you able to get a night? 5? Okay, to me, that's not adequate. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to take, and this is a real conversation, and I don't think he watches my YouTube, but he is definitely welcome to tell everybody who he is. But basically, 5 hours of sleep a night, to me, was not enough with the amount of training that we were doing. Full power, squat, bench, deadlift, and at the level he's at, definitely an elite level power lifter. I told him, you know what, we're going to have to either cut out something to allow you to get more sleep, or we're going to need to just pause everything. And so he understood. And so basically what we did is we consolidated squats and deadlifts onto one single day, because those were the days that seemed to be taking the most out of him. And bench is his primary focus right now, so that worked out quite well. So we still do one bench day a week. I would prefer having a bench and a bench accessory day, but we're having to move some things around. So what we're basically doing in his case is a quick bench day where he gets in, gets the main sets, and gets some accessory work, and he's done. That way he has time to use. We're basically trying to subtract an hour of his training every day so that he can get an hour of sleep every day. So we're sacrificing a little bit of training for a little bit of recovery, which I think is going to work out a lot better, because the better you feel, the better you're going to recover. Your life is better. You're going to get through whatever this phase is of Christmas, and we're still going to be able to move on and without injury. The squats, we're alternating. So we're doing squats heavy one week, and then the next week we do deadlifts heavy, and then we drop the squat or the deadlift off, and then we do some lower body accessories. And then on the third day, we're adding in some of the bench accessories from like the Monday or whatever days on he's doing whatever day he's doing bench. And it doesn't matter what day he does it on, as long as he has a day of rest in between these days. So he can do, Monday, Wednesday, and then Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Saturday. I would prefer there to be a day, but because of the work schedule, we just have to fluctuate. And some days the training gets turned in on Saturday, some days it gets turned in like the next Tuesday. But it's all about feedback, and that's really how I work all my coaching clients is tell me what you're feeling, tell me what you're doing, tell me how you feel, because that's based, what we do this next week is based on what you just told me, not what I'm planning already. That's the whole point of being a coach. And so a lot of it is just not lifting, it's life in general. It's like, okay, well, tell me, have you spent time with your wife and kids this week? No? Well, we need to take some time out, and actually time management here. And are you actually using that hour that we've dedicated for you to get more sleep? How many hours of sleep are you getting this week? 6? Okay, that's better. 6 hours a week or 6 hours a day of sleep is not what I want you to get. But if you're having to work 78 hours a week and you have time for your family and you have this time for training, there's really nothing more that I can tell you to do other than cut out an hour of training. And now that starts to negate the purpose of training altogether. But it becomes a nice little synergistic balance. But that's what I would basically tell anybody. And Tony, as far as you're concerned, let me know if that's something that is affecting you. We can definitely, don't hold anything back. Let me know how everything's feeling, because that's really how training needs to be. That's how I do my own training. If, like, for example, today is a deload week. Normally I would hit my bench on Monday on the first week. Because it's a deload week, my wife's got some stuff going on right now. I would normally be training at this very moment. She's at a meeting, so I'm going to go ahead and do my training tomorrow, and it's not going to really affect anything for this week. Next week, we'll start back on Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, and kind of stagger it. But I hope that answered your question. Awesome that you put out this information. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Woo Party. I appreciate that. You're 159 pounds. Your deadlift is 405 and your bench is 265. Pause. My squat is very weak. Can't get 225 for reps. And my squat technique is good. Another thing, my legs lactic acid builds up very fast. So honestly, it sounds like you just need to work on your squat a little bit. Omar, just basically what you need to do is stop worrying about the weight that's on the bar. When you stop thinking about the weight, you stop ego lifting, if you will. I'm not saying you are ego lifting, but everybody tends to want to go in there and put weight on the bar, and that's kind of your sign that you're improving. When you're dealing with a new lift or trying to get a lift out of the gutter, sometimes you just have to go down to the bar and just work on like some pause squats and do like sets of 10 with pause reps. And then obviously you're going to get to the point where you're going to be like, okay, the bar is too easy. Put 135 on there. You're going to get to a point to where it's a little bit challenging. That's your starting point. Then you want to add 5 pounds or so a week. And I'm just kind of throwing a number out there, but stop worrying about it being a race to the finish and how fast you can get to a certain weight, and start worrying about how it feels and really mind-muscle connection. And you're less of the powerlifting approach and more of the bodybuilding approach, where you put on, the weight. It's almost kind of like coming back from an injury. You don't want to push it too fast, but you want to be methodical in your approach. There's no set rep range that you want to stay within. You're just moving the weight steadily, strong, focusing on technique. And then as you start getting a little more comfortable, you work on exploding a little bit more and a little bit more weight on there, and just kind of progress. And before you know it, you're going to have more weight on the bar than you have right now. And you'll be able to feel confident. And that's the other thing, is you're going to be able to build confidence. If you just slap 3 plates on there and you can barely do 225 right now, that's not going to build very much confidence. And so it's going to scare you off. So I would definitely use that approach and tell me how that does for you. Did you guys take pro hormones back in football? I didn't. No, I've never taken pro hormones or anything like that. Definitely not before I got on doctor's prescription in 2016. How do you know how much tension a band has? Honestly, the best way to do it is to use a luggage scale. I have one that I bought from Walmart for like $5, and it's basically just it's a clock dial and a hook, and they use it, to weigh your luggage before you get on the plane. They have digital ones, you can get all fancy with it, but honestly, I just have an analog one where it tells me, 0 to 50 pounds or whatever. And what I'll do is just stick the band on whatever it's attached to, and then I'll pull it up to about the bar level, and then I'll kind of analyze, okay, is that 50 pounds, is it 30 pounds, 20 pounds? And then if I need more, I either double the band over, or I stretch the band out a little bit more, or add more bands. Any technique that really helped your squat form? Box squats and paused squats really helped my form. Teaches you to sit back and really trust. Now, I like to do a high bar squat, but you can do the similar technique where you sit back into the squat. Right here. What's that? Presents right here. All right, bud. Where you're basically feeling your hips opening up so you can sit back into the squat. And then as far as pause squats, a lot of people struggle out of the hole, out of the bottom of the squat. And if you're working on pause squats, you're working on knowing yourself and how you feel in the bottom of the hole, where your hips are, and how to explode out of the hole. So it's very similar, not quite, but it's very similar to like a dead press, where you're able to come out of the bottom with no stretch reflex. Not the same, but similar. Excuse me. When does your heavy bench season start? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. Heavy bench season started last week. You'll hear about it on the recap later tonight. I won't tell you how much, just so I can hold something. I'm gonna do the recap tonight. I'll post it tomorrow morning on YouTube. But last week we had a certain amount of weight scheduled, and that felt amazing. We bumped it up to about 20 pounds, and nailed another set and have a lot more in the tank. Feeling good. A little update on the shoulder. A little, I don't want to say bursitis. It might be. It's a little hard to tell what it is. It's nothing critical because it's not hurting any of my lifts. It hurts sitting here right now. It hurts if I kind of do this. It's just a little, it's just an impingement. Like right now, I just put my arm down. It hurts a little bit. So I'll ice it. I'll take care of it. But it doesn't seem to affect any of my lifts. It's almost like once I get warm, it feels a lot better. I'm no diagnostician or doctor. You know, I haven't had it checked out. If it bothers me at the end of this week, I'll probably go have somebody check it out and just give me, you know, their professional opinion and see if it's something major that I should pay attention to. But because I don't feel it at all when I'm lifting, and it's definitely not a pressing movement. It doesn't hurt to press at all. I thought it would hurt to maybe laterally move some weight on cables, but when I put weight on it, it doesn't hurt. It's when I'm lifting with no weight or just sitting here. It's weird. But yeah, bench season, heavy bench season has officially started, and we are starting to ramp things up. So I'm very, very excited. The back work is phenomenal right now. I mean, everything I'm doing on rows, on you know, anything that's on accessory work, triceps, rows, lat pull downs, all those lifts, rear delts, it just disgustingly heavy right now for this time of the season. And actually, it's basically, I'm going heavier now on all my accessory work than I go, with the exception of weighted dips. We took those out because the elbows and the shoulders were kind of working on me a little bit. But with the exception of weighted dips, every single accessory is either more reps and more weight than I've ever had in the past on any of my training cycles at any point in any of those training cycles. So definitely excited. That's the thing. When my accessory work pumps up, you know something big is happening. And that's, I put a big emphasis on my accessory work. So is my coach. So I think we're going to be looking at some pretty hefty weights going forward if we can stay healthy. But stay tuned. Santa Hack, great stream. Thank you, Criminal. Just joined, wondering if you have any suggestions for exercise in regards to scapular retraction. I have issues with my right shoulder rotating forward and struggle under heavy bench. Okay, so a couple things with scapular retraction is a lot of it's mind muscle connection. I like to use simple things like bands or even one-handed back rows. If you can get on a machine where instead of you're having to use both hands, maybe even if it's if it's not singular or iso where you can do one hand at a time, lighten the weight up to where maybe it's just one single plate.